Romans or Revelations.
I'm there like 3 hours.
I'm on chapter
But it's easier,
2 months.
but you don't.
It is amazing when you really, and every time you read it, you know more.
But I already called the sister. She called me back.
How much is
Wait, but I know what she says. Okay.
in a chapter spiritually?
I mean, because I said I have a couple.
That's not just words, you know what I'm saying?
And then we reliable on their hard
It's
workers.
amazing.
You know, I would trust.
Because I've been
But
reading
you
it.
know, what's amazing is there's not a word in that book that's there to take up space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
She's.
and then as you read it,
She gets around, she's crying for kids, etc.
you know, as you know more about who it's written to, and you then know why it's written to, then you go, well, that's why it's right there in the book. Oh, you know, for anybody, well, obviously, to say anybody can read this book that would not, but without spiritual eyes, you wouldn't know what spiritual inspiration
You'll
is.
only grasp a certain amount of it if you've never been saved. You know, there's no way you can comprehend it without having spiritual eyes.
It's just amazing to me. I've been reading through it, and
Yeah, almost $20.
Josh, you wanna get that door back there for me, buddy? Thank you.
do I need to push any button here, or is it?
No, I already started. Yeah, I know, Dwayne, I'm amazed by, you know, when I get in the book of Romans, that some of the things that, Paul says in there, you know, and here I've been studying it since the 80s, and I still sometimes come across stuff in there, I think, what does he mean right there, you know? But, you know, it's really good. God designed his word to be that way, I think, for a reason. It keeps our attention.
Yeah.
You know that there's always room for more growth, no matter where you're at, as far as your spiritual well-being goes. You know, if people understood the necessity of feeding their spiritual man, their soul, the word of God, like we do our physical man, I mean, this country would be a whole different place to live, you know? We're so wrapped up in making sure we feed the physical man and neglecting the spiritual man, you know? But when the Lord told Satan, he said, man shall not live on bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. That word, that verse means more to me today than it ever has. I understand fully that I need to get nourishment from this book. It's good for your heart. It's good for your mind. It's good for your soul. You know, I'm hoping what we're going to go through this morning, you know, when I stand up here and preach, I've already preached this message to me. You know what I'm saying? And this was a message that I need preached to me. And it's a message that needs to be preached to other people, because I see more and more and more suffering in our world today due to money. Money, you know, and I'm going to be going over some things about money and wealth and deceitfulness of riches and these things this morning. But before we get started on that, anybody got any prayer requests?
I've actually got a couple. A friend of our family has been friends with Mom and Dad for years. He's having open heart surgery Monday, tomorrow. He's pretty nervous. He's been a preacher for years. He don't have his own church no more, but he still does revivals and stuff like that. But Mom went to see him yesterday, and she said he was just really nervous because he's got one artery that's 100% blocked, one that's like 80, and then one that's 70. So it's pretty serious stuff.
Right.
And then a girl that played softball with Adley last year, her little sister that's 15 months old, had surgery last week on the hip. They found out something, she didn't have the ball joint or something in there when she started to try to walk, is when they found out that there was something wrong. So they had her at UT last week for that surgery, and she's gonna be in the cast from her chest down to her knees, all the way down one leg.
How old is she?
15 months. So it's gonna be trying for them just to
Yeah.
take care of her and everything. And then I've got a thankful prayer request. I had to take him to the ER yesterday after during a basketball game. He got clotheslined and TMG sprain on his jaw, but it could have been a lot worse. I'm just thankful it's just a sprain.
Right. Remember Mark and Rachel, they're down in Florida right now. They left it was either Thursday or Friday. My mind's not good, but, she had another stroke again, and, the largest portion of her brain's dead now. They said that she's on, ventilation system. And now she's contracted, MRSA, flesh-eating bacteria, which they went down there for the purpose of going to court and getting power of attorney. So, they could take her off life support, cause if she did, live, she's gonna be a vegetable. Which now that she's got MRSA, I doubt she'll live anyway. But, that's a very difficult thing for a son or a daughter to have to do, is to make a decision of whether or not to pull life support on their own mom or dad. I mean, I can't imagine. I've never had to do anything like that, so I really, can't say that I understand it fully, but my heart goes out for Rachel and Jared. Jared works down there at Sounds Club. That's Rachel's brother. But y'all remember them if you would.
Is it just the two of them?
Yeah, just the two of them.
And the guy that's having open heart surgery, he has been in the hospital since last week because he's got the MRSA.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let him go home with that, so they gotta get it cleared up before they do surgery.
Yeah. And Nancy's,
Nephew, yeah, I want to say
nephew, Sean.
thank you. Yeah, I always want to tell everyone thank you for the prayers because they're working. He's really progressing.
Yeah.
Well, and he's at home and he's got his brain all back together. It's just going to be a recuperation process.
Good. Glad to hear that.
I have an unspoken prayer request as well.
Okay. Anybody else? Ashley, you want to open us up? You always smile about it, don't you? Let's go to the Lord in word first. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for a chance to gather ourselves together and study your word rightly divided. We thank you for the fellowship we have in this Bible class and the friends and the relatives that come here to study your word rightly divided. We pray for all of those that are away today, that you'll be with them, Lord, and take care of each and every one of them, Lord, for all these prayer requests that's been made known, that you take care of each situation, Lord. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Also remember Cindy and Stacy as they leave today, because when Grayson left last Sunday, Sis had a really hard time with
Yeah.
thinking about
Oh, I can imagine.
Who did?
Sis.
Yeah.
She cried, that's her heart.
Yeah, I can remember when Caleb rode off into the wild blue yonder. I don't know something about that youngest one leaving, but it was, I'd say I had some tears,
But studies say she'll be back home within 5 years.
Probably the first time she gets sick, she'll be back home.
They do leave, and sometimes they do come back.
I'll read statistics about, the kids that leave home, and now more of them are moving back in, and I don't remember the percentage, but I text Cindy, I says, hey, take hope, she'll be back within about 5 years.
Exactly.
You're right, when you've gotten used to them being gone, and then all of a sudden they show back up at your door, and you're like, now it's tears of, oh no.
My door's locked, all of them now. I lock my doors,
That's right.
Stay where you at, make the best of it. That's all I can say. Get Matthew chapter 13. and get verse 18. Hear ye therefore the parable of the sower. When anyone heareth the word of the kingdom and understandeth it not, then cometh the wicked one and casteth away that which was sown in his heart. This is he which receiveth seed by the wayside. But he that receiveth the seed into stony places, the same as he that heareth the word, and anon with joy receiveth it. Yet hath he not root in himself, but dureth for a while. For when tribulation or persecution ariseth because of the word, by and by he is offended. He also that receives seed among the thorns is he that heareth the word, and the care of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becometh unfruitful. But he that receiveth seed into the good ground is he that heareth the word, understandeth it, which also beareth fruit, and bringeth forth some 100-fold, some 60 and 30. Mainly verse 22. He also that receiveth seed among the thorns is he that heareth the word, and the care of this world of riches choke the word, and he becometh unfruitful. I don't know how many times I've seen people get saved. I've seen people come to the knowledge of the truth. And, the cares of this world will get you about as quick as anything, I believe. The deceitfulness of riches and these types of things. Get 1 Timothy and let's see what Paul says about this also. 1 Timothy chapter 6. Chapter 6. It ain't gonna be long. I'm gonna have to get me another Bible. I'm already having to tape this one together. Especially the 13 epistles right there in the middle. They get wore out quicker than the rest of it does. 1 Timothy chapter 6, and let's pick up with verse 5. Perverse disputings of men of corrupt minds and destitute of the truth, supposing that gain is godliness, from such withdraw thyself. When I think of somebody that supposes that gain is godliness, I think of the religious system out here. These big old churches these monstrosities of churches that they build out here. I pass one every Sunday morning, and it seems like they're having to park more and more of them in the grass because they've run out of parking lot room. They build a new road up in behind the church, up there to the church. And I guarantee you the thinking in amongst this group is, look what God's doing. Look what God's doing. God must be in this, or we wouldn't be growing like this. Now, seeing that don't have anything to do with the type of growing that God wants you to be doing. Okay? The kind of growing that God's interested in you growing in is His Word. He wants you to grow spiritually. It don't have anything to do with what you put on your body. It don't have anything to do with a big old wealthy organization, a big old church, a big old cathedral. It don't have anything to do with that. And how many preachers today go to seminaries? Most of them, a lot of them they go to seminaries and they go there for a purpose, and that's to learn how to run a business. Okay? A lot of times their mama called and daddy sent, and they have a purpose, and that's to make money. It's an easy way. A lot of men see this as an easy way to make a good living. You know what I'm saying? I know somebody personally that did this very thing. Went to seminary, became a preacher, and when it didn't all work, the church went into business for itself. I witnessed these things. I see what happens to people. that supposed gain is godliness. Verse 6, but godliness with contentment is great gain. There's a lot to be said about contentment. That I would say that is the most difficult thing in my life for me to deal with, is for me to be content. Because I believe contentment, what it does to you is it soothes your soul, your spirit, your inner man. It brings about a calm to you when you can settle into a contentment. Verse 7, for we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. I haven't seen anybody with a U-Haul truck behind their, what do they call it, the hearse. Nobody hooks a U-Haul to a hearse, do they? You ain't going to take it with you. Most of the time we build up these big accounts, or we try to. I don't have no big account. I probably don't in this Bible class. I'm saying this is the thinking of the world, though. If I can get me this big old account built up, I'll feel better about things. No, you won't. No, you won't. Because then you'll think about how much bigger you can get it. It's a never-ending story. It's a snowball effect. Once you get caught up in this, you're in it. You're just going to have to make yourself exit out of it. I'll just give you an example of one of the things that I deal with on my job. I'm not going to say who I work for, but I'm a sales rep on my job. And there's a lot of stress and pressure that comes with sales in the corporate world, okay? And my competitive nature that I've got from playing sports and school and stuff, I feel like I've got to be number one in everything. I've got to be a winner. I have to win. You know what I'm saying? And this kind of brings me grief in the world, that type of thinking does. Because when I see somebody else going to finish in that top spot where I work at in sales, I've got to get myself in a frame of mind where I've got to beat them. It's more for me than it is about the money. You know what I'm saying? But this type of thinking brings heartache. It don't bring joy. Today in our society, the lottery, okay? This last one that was won, $450 million. One ticket. And we have the thinking in America, Lord, if I could win that lottery, it would take care of everything. No, it wouldn't. It's been proven over and over and over and over that winning the lottery most of the time brings misery into people's lives. I don't even know if that person's come forward yet with the winning ticket. They're probably getting their lawyers and stuff together because they know the onslaught of friends and relatives, that some of them that even probably hated them at one time, going to be coming at them wanting money. You know what I'm saying? Money does not fix your problems. Read on here with me. Verse 8, and having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. Now raiment, I looked that word up, and raiment carries more than just clothes on your back. It has to do with a covering. Okay, that would carry the idea of, a place to live, Now, certainly God's not promised you these things if you're not, if you've never been saved and you're not following the truth. There's people out there, folks, that could care less about God that lives on the side of the road, that lives under bridges and underpasses and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Go back to verse 7. For we brought nothing in this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out, and having food and raiment, let us therewith be content. But they that will be rich, now what he means right here, people that have a will to be rich. In other words, that's what their focus is about, is to get rich. Now, believe it or not, folks, poor people can even think like this. It ain't always a rich man that has this type of thinking. Poor people can think like this, you know? Read on here with me. But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. After they from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Covetousness, the desire to be wealthy, the desire to have all these things, folks, has caused many a man, many a woman, many a household to err from the faith and pierce themselves through with many sorrows. It happens every day, probably. You know, getting caught up in the cares of this world, the cares of this life. Some things I wrote down here. We done covered the lottery, but something I noticed today. In marriage, there's nothing that'll destroy a marriage quicker than finances. Financial burdens will create havoc in a household. It can cause people to split and go their ways. People that love each other. People that have been in love for years. I know of a friend of mine who was telling me that they've got some neighbors, and they're supposedly wealthy neighbors. They've got a big old house up on a hillside, spent a lot of money for it, got a lot of acreage there, drive these real nice fancy vehicles and all this stuff. And his wife, the guy that supposedly is wealthy, his wife called my friend's wife up wanting to borrow $5,000. And didn't want her to say anything, didn't want my friend's wife to say anything to her husband. Now, I will tell you something, folks. This kind of stuff goes on in marriages all the time. And I'm going to tell you what I call it. I call it financial adultery. It's pretty much what it is. When you're going behind your spouse's back and making financial decisions that can bring harm to your household, that's not good. That's not good. You're stepping into some areas, what you're doing, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. You know, a husband and wife finances should always be in the open. There should never be any secrets. There should not be any hiding money from each other. You know, I know about the women's secret hiding places where y'all supposedly hide money and stuff from your husbands and stuff. You know, I know I've had women tell me that they've got credit cards that their husband don't know about. You know, I'm telling you, that kind of stuff is destructive. It'll drown your marriage in destruction. You know, always be upfront with your spouse. Friendships. How many times have I seen money ruin a friendship? It'll do it quicker than anything, will it not? Some friend call another friend up, hey man, you got a couple $1,000 I can borrow? Man, I've hit some bad times and things ain't looking good on the job right now and all this stuff. And the friend says, yeah, you've always been a real good friend to me. Sure, here's a couple $1,000. And then for some reason or another, the friend's not able to come up with the money to pay it back. You know, how many times does that happen in people's lives that you guys know about? The corporate world today, money, it's created greed throughout the world that we live in today. I noticed Walmart, you know, they no more get the stuff off the shelves from one holiday till they've already got the stuff on the shelves for the next holiday. Is that not true? Halloween comes in. Well, let's start with college football, okay? College football, a lot of merchandise gets put on them shelves. You go to Walmart, Tennessee stuff everywhere, you know? Then Halloween comes along in October. You got all the Halloween costumes and the candy and all that stuff. And look at the money that corporate America's making off of these holidays. Okay? Then you have Christmas right around the corner. Well, they start putting stuff for Christmas on the shelves, what, in September now? You know? And folks, that's a holiday, and I'm going to say it, it's a pagan holiday that people get caught up in America, and most people that celebrate that holiday don't give a hoot about Jesus Christ. You know what I'm saying? And look at the money that goes through corporate America during that time. And people will absolutely get in Walmart and these places where they sell electronics and stuff and fight one another. Adults will fight one another over the merchandise. I know you've seen the YouTube videos of it, you know. What is it, Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving? I mean, have y'all seen the YouTube videos of the adults that will get in those lines and get in confrontations with each other, beat people down, right? And while other people are standing there taking pictures of it, videoing it. Instead, what happened to the time when we would have stepped in there and helped somebody?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now we video it because we want to put something on YouTube that'll go viral. That not true? Here's another one. Settling estates. Woo-hoo. Boy, you talking about some fights between family members. You let a rich uncle or a rich aunt or a rich grandpa or grandma die in a family, and buddy, the fight's on.
So many families break up over that stuff.
Exactly.
They don't even have to be rich. They think there's money out there that they're going to get. You
Do
know?
what?
They don't even have to be rich, but there's money.
Exactly.
You know?
If there's, you know, just any amount of money or.
Their sense of entitlement.
And they're sitting there waiting on something to happen to them. That's what's so sad.
I know. But I know my sons are probably kidding about this, but when Caleb and Sean and all of them get together, they're all the time talking about which one's going to get my AK-47 and which one's going to get my semi-automatic shotgun or you know, all the time talking about it. I said, guys, I ain't dead yet. You know, I'm not going to be leaving my kids a whole lot of nothing. If anything, I have never in my life, I'm 61 years old, and I have never in my life had a savings account. Maybe I did for a year one time. But it, you know what I'm saying? Anytime you're married, husbands, that money's going to get spent. Is it not? I'm kidding with you guys. But settling estates can wreak havoc in a family. Another thing, the usury system that we have set up in the world today. You know, God warned about the usury system. It was actually against the law of God back in the Old Testament for people to loan money to people to get interest back. Okay? And our system today, folks, is not set up to help anybody. Okay? If you think it's set up to help people, well, you're kidding yourself. Okay? Matter of fact, the usury system that we have set up today in America, if you get down on your luck, it's designed to kick you while you're down. It's not designed to help you out of that hole. It's designed to kick you while you're down. Because if your credit gets shaky and you need to get a loan for something, guess what? They're going to charge you a much higher interest rate to loan you money because they see you as a high risk. I've been down that road. I sold Filter Queen vacuum cleaners back years ago, and I've seen people buy that vacuum cleaner that had terrible credit that would pay 29% interest on a $1,400 loan to get that vacuum cleaner. There is no way this old boy here would pay 29% interest on a $1,500 loan to buy any vacuum cleaner. But people will do it. People will buy a car that has terrible interest. You hear the advertisements, good credit, no credit. It don't matter what your credit is. Come on down, folks. We'll get you in a new car today. Yeah, they don't tell you about how high that interest rate's going to be, though. You know, and these title loan companies, that ought to be outlawed. Every title loan company across America should be shut down tomorrow. That's some of the biggest crooks on the face of the earth. You know? Okay. I've rambled on about that enough. But there's nobody that knew about covetousness more than the Apostle Paul did. Get Galatians chapter 1. Galatians chapter 1. And get verse 13. For ye have heard of my conversation in time past in the Jews' religion, how that beyond measure I persecuted the church of God and wasted it, and profited in the Jews' religion above many my equals in mine own nation, being more exceedingly zealous of the traditions of my fathers. Now, Paul knew about covetousness. Matter of fact, in Romans chapter 7, he makes it pretty clear that that was the biggest sin that he dealt with. Not known covetousness until the law came and said, thou shalt not covet. You know, and he was a Pharisee. And in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, it says that the Pharisees were covetous. They wanted what you've got. You know, we live in a world today, folks, that people don't feel like they've got a big enough piece of the pie. Well, then they want part of your pie. You know, it's all about what can I get off of people. I want more. I want more. I can't get enough. The mentality, I believe, now this is my thinking, that type of mentality is bringing a lot of misery and sorrow into our world that we live in. You know, why? That's why antidepressants are running rampant throughout the world today. There are people all over America today, folks, are on some type of an antidepressant because they're depressed about the world they live in. And I'll guarantee you somewhere in there, there's anxiousness and anxiety tied into wanting more than what they've got. Get Galatians chapter 6. Now, and I'm going to change the focus here just a little bit on how we should appropriate money in our own lives. You know, we need to learn as adults how to use our money and to use it in a godly way. You know, and everything I'm going to say right now, I'm not saying it because I want anything, because I don't. I have a good job. I make a decent living. I don't need any money from, you know, you guys. Don't want any money from you guys. I'm just saying what these verses are dealing with here. Galatians chapter 6, some of the most misused verses in the Bible. Get verse 6, chapter 6, verse 6. Let him that is taught in the word communicate unto him that teacheth in all good things. Be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are of the household of faith. The word communicate, back up here in verse 6, has to do with giving. It has, and what he's talking about when he says, and he that soweth to the flesh, of the flesh shall corruption. Well, think about the context of what's being dealt with here in the book of Galatians. It's the flesh or the law versus grace. That's pretty much the conversation of this book, is it not? Law versus grace, okay? The flesh versus the Spirit, okay, would be another way to say it. And Paul's saying to these people, if you're going to communicate your finances towards the flesh, in other words, a ministry that teaches and preaches that you've got to be circumcised and keep the law, okay, then you're going to reap corruption. Not if, and now keep in mind, he's talking to saved people here. It's not that they're going to reap the corruption, it's the people that would be listening. You see what I'm saying? Let me get down here just a little bit in this. Be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. If he's saved, he won't reap his corruption. It's his family members and friends that could have heard the right gospel had he been appropriating that money in the right direction towards the right ministry that was preaching grace. You see what I'm saying? For he that soweth to his flesh shall reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall the Spirit reap life everlasting. Well, I already have life everlasting, do I not? I got saved back in 1980. I've had life everlasting ever since. So it don't have anything to do with me. If I sow to the Spirit, I'm going to reap life everlasting for me. It's for other people. By my supporting that ministry, that man of God that preaches the gospel, whereby other people can get saved and reap life everlasting. That's what this has to do with. You know, that's this stuff that people put out here today. You reap what you sow. Well, in the physical world, is that always true? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It ain't always true. But here in these verses, be not deceived, God is not mocked. I'll guarantee you it stands true every time. Now, yes, I don't need nothing from nobody today. And I like it that way because I'm not chargeable to nobody. You know, I can't get fired. You know, y'all could quit coming, of course. I can't get fired. Nobody can take my salary because I don't get one. So I'm going to say the truth. You know, what's the worst that's going to happen to me? I'm going to speak the truth. Okay? Get Philippians and we'll see a little bit more on this. Philippians chapter 4, verse 10. But I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now at the last your care of me hath flourished again. Wherein you were also careful, but ye lacked opportunity. Bless you. Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. You know, there's a man at one time who was a very wealthy man, had lots of gain, you know, and met the Lord on the road to Damascus. And today he can stand and say, I'm content with whatever state I'm in. There was times that the Bible said that Paul was naked and destitute of food, no place to live. You know, he was poor at times, you know. Did he stay poor? Absolutely not. Paul wasn't afraid of working. Paul was a tent maker by trade, you know, and he was willing to go to work and make changes in his life. You know, Paul writes in Thessalonians, if a man won't work, neither should he eat. You know, in America today, we preach, if you won't work, we'll feed you. You know what I'm saying? Everybody here knows what I'm talking about. This free stuff society that America's headed towards. You know, everybody's got their hand out wanting something free. Go to work. I'll guarantee you, you get a job and go to work, within 2 weeks, you'll get a paycheck of some sort. It may not be the paycheck you think you're worthy of. Well, good Lord, folks, when I was back in the mid-'80s, I had 2 small little boys. Well, I had 3, counting Sean, but he wasn't so small at the time. I'm talking about the 2 I had custody of, and my wife, okay? And both of us were out of a job. Okay, because of stupid decisions on their part. Okay, I took a job making $4.50 an hour. $4.50 an hour. I know people say, well, back in 1984, that was the equivalent of making $10 or $11, $12 there. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But and then eventually, my wife at the time, she got a job, you know. It took us a while to get things moving back in the right direction. But because of stupid decisions on our part, okay, we hurt our entire family financially. Read on here in Philippians with me. Not that I speak in respect of want, verse 11 again, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. I know both how to be abased, to do without. He knows how to do without, okay? And I know how to abound. What does he mean when he says, I know how to abound? Well, I think Paul had learned the lesson on how to abound in things that he needed. And that's, he said several times in the book of Acts and in the book of Ephesians, that he worked with his own hands to supply not only his needs, but the needs of those who needed it. You know, it ain't all about you. You know, when we go to work, we work with our hands, we make a living, we pay our bills. You know, and if that's all you got left, so be it. But if what you've got left is all you're caring about from that point forward is to building you some big old bank accounts, and you see somebody that you know of that suffer need and you ain't willing to help them, you've got a problem. You've got a spiritual problem. You know what I'm saying? You need to open up your bowels of compassion, because this is how you abound, folks. You want your monies to grow, or you want them to not grow. It's all up to you, because God loves a cheerful giver. You know what I'm saying? Read on. I know both how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. There's another one of them verses that's used way out of context today. Athletes, more often than not, are the ones that are misusing this verse to say, well, you know, Tim Tebow used to wear it up and under his eyes, and that black. Philippians chapter 4, verse, what was it, 13? Yeah, you know, and it was what he was saying to people is, I can be this great quarterback through Christ which strengthens me. That's what he's saying to people. And that verse don't mean that whatsoever, folks. It don't have anything to do with that. Christ strengthened Paul during the times that he was abased, doing without, strengthened him to the point that he was able to get through those times. Just like he has you at times, just like he has myself at times. You know, I'm just going to tell you a story. I went through about a 2 or 3 year period there where mine and my last wife's business just went totally south. But state and federal laws, you know, and I got a accelerated foreclosure notice in the mail probably every other month. Now, if you don't think that don't make you walk on eggshells and can create some problems in a household, create problems in a marriage, then you got to think you need to experience it for yourself, and I hope none of you ever have to. Because, buddy, for that to go on for about 2 or 3 years, over and I just get a house payment made soon enough where the foreclosure didn't start. You know, tough. It's tough, man. You know, but I got through those times. You know, and I look back on it now, and it's through the trials and the tribulations that we go through in life where we grow. One thing I can say about me during that time, focused in the Word of God. I mean, I got so focused, it was during those times that I learned more than I'd ever learned. You know what I'm saying? If you need strength, right here in this book. You know, that's where it's at. It's right here in this book. Get 2 Corinthians chapter 9, and we're going to finish up with this. 2 Corinthians chapter 9. And let's pick up with verse 6. But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly. He which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. Now, here, I want you to think about this. Paul and Titus and some of his helpers were taking up an offering from all the Gentile churches, okay, at this time, to take up to Jerusalem, okay? Hold your finger right there and get Romans chapter 15. Romans chapter 15 and get verse 26. For it hath pleased them of Macedonia and Achaia to make a certain contribution for the poor saints which were at Jerusalem. Why were the saints at Jerusalem poor? Why were the saints in Jerusalem poor saints now? Well, they quit their jobs. They sold all their land and their properties. They sold everything and quit their jobs to wait on the second coming. Well, when the Lord put that prophetic program on hold and ushered in the dispensation of the grace of God that he committed to Paul, well, they started going without. You know, that's years and years later, and some of them still don't have jobs. Some of them don't have food to eat. So Paul and the Gentile churches are taking up a big collection for Paul to deliver up there, and that's why he goes through Acts chapter 21, is to deliver that big offering that the Gentile churches had sent up there to the Jews, the poor saints in Jerusalem. Talked about here in 2 chapter 9, verse 6. But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap sparingly. He which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. Every man according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound towards you. What's the all grace that he's talking about there? I believe he's talking about Jesus. I do. I believe God's able to change your financial situation based on your thinking, based on your heart, based on your bowels of compassion for your fellow man. You know, God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that ye always having all sufficiency. That's why I say this. Abound towards you, that ye always having all sufficiency in all good things may abound to every good work. In other words, if there's a good work like the preaching of the gospel of Christ, he's saying, I'll make all grace abound towards you financially so that you can help support that. Get finances to help support that ministry, that man of God that stands and proclaims and preaches the word of God. It goes back to Galatians chapter 6, communicate unto him that teacheth you in the word of God. You know, say I don't want, and I'm not saying this because I want anything. I'm just saying. Now, there may come a day where, you know, my world falls apart again. You might get the chance to show the sincerity of your love someday. But I hope it never comes to that. I like things the way they are. I don't see you like I I see you shaking your head. But verse 9, and we'll finish up. As it is written, he hath dispersed abroad, he hath given to the poor, his righteousness remaineth forever. And I appreciate it, and appreciate all of you coming out this morning. Thank you a lot.
I'm not sure how to turn it. Oh, it stopped.